On the NAIA football scene tonight, we're going back to some different position groups. Let's start things off with the running backs. Matt, we've got a talented group to talk about tonight. Couple guys that I feel like are by far and away the most center of attention for most media. I mean, you got to get those guys right out of the way up front. Tell me about those two.
Yeah, Darius Neal and Gunnar Yates, two guys that have potential to be National Player of the Year candidates. They are that good. I know Gunnar Yates is somebody we've talked about on the show before and have had on the show before. Absolutely fantastic guy, and also an even more phenomenal athlete for Southern Oregon. They were the sleeping giant in the frontier that has kind of surged
Sure.
recently, and they're looking to be a top contender going into next season. That'll be off the back of Gunnar Yates, a guy who had 1,300 plus all-purpose yards, just a phenomenal athlete. And Darius Neal for Georgetown, kind of the bread and butter main guy of that team, really succeeded with Georgetown and was their main guy. He was the reason they made a big run last year, especially with some of the spots on their offense being questionable. Definitely with how defensively centered that squad was the previous year, having a guy like Darius Neal on the field that can help you chew clock and manage the game is
Hell
super
yeah.
important. But it's also notable that like when he was taken out of the game, Georgetown was in a tough situation. Clearly they're X factors, somebody that teams are gonna key on, but he's definitely good enough to where that might not matter. I think he's got another 1,000+ yard season in the cards, especially in a super competitive Mid-South. I'm excited to see how he does. But two guys that definitely need to get out of the way because we want to
Yeah.
mention some guys we don't get to talk about all the time.
Yes, I think that's the perfect time to do this. And those two guys are obviously deserving to be on this list as well, or that's why we're talking about them. But to move on to these guys, I think sleeper would be just not appropriate for these guys. These guys have all types of different accolades at the conference and national level. But what we do, like you just said, we don't get to talk about these guys just as much as maybe some of the other bigger names. Let's start things off. Amon Williams from UPike, the redshirt sophomore, who's a guy that is an all AAC running back and a UPike team that just made the move over from the Mid-South not too recently, right? So you're talking about guys who are already cracking through at the highest level of this conference. Also on the national stage, I mean, a 2024 All-American type of back. This is a guy that really did it all for this squad. The all-time AAC single-season rushing leader last year as well in 2024. You talk about his running style as you take a look at some of the tape here. Balanced, tough runner, agile, good in space. But when I turn on the tape here, it looks like defenders need to go back to the angle of pursuit drill, Matt. He's got him looking stupid. He breaks through the second level, whether it's inside, outside, or regardless. You look at the guys in the defensive secondary, first of all, just lack of effort on that tackling right there. But you look at the guys in the defensive secondary, their straight angle turns into a bow, turns into, oh shit, I'm behind about 10 yards. This is one of those guys that makes defenders look stupid at all phases of the defense. He's done a very good job of that, and he's going to need to continue to do that. No returning quarterbacks for this Pike squad. Williams, the featured player, of course, looking to take down top dogs like Reinhardt, and he has to be the man leading the charge. He's ready for that responsibility, I think. When you look at an offensive backfield, the best friend for a fresh face under center is a dog to share the backfield with. He is absolutely that, I think, in every sense of the word, as you see a couple of the plays there. 5'11", 185 pounds. He's got breakaway speed. I think you see that in the tape when you turn it on. But maybe what you don't see is that he's also durable enough to play, I mean, almost every single snap for this squad. At running back is not really an every single snap of the game type position. Obviously, you go through maybe different guys on different series, but he's durable enough that he's going to be out there any given Saturday, and he's a guy that's not going to miss extended periods of time. And as a lot of great coaches of mine have told me, your best ability is your availability, and Amon Williams embodies that, Matt.
Yeah, being able to be a guy for UPike that as a redshirt freshman was breaking records for them.
Ridiculous.
Staple of your team for years to come. Absolutely a guy they're going to be leaning on. And I think somebody who's going to have a few very productive seasons ahead of them on this honestly surging UPike team. They ended the season ranked last year in the official NAIA poll. They have a lot of good things going. It's going to be interesting to see how they piece it together. And I think Amon Williams is going to be spearheading that.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Keep this thing going. Talking about Tyson.
Yeah, so Tyson Denkert from Midland, a senior on that football team. Now, Midland is another team. You'll notice with a lot of these guys we talk about, they are surging as their teams are surging, which is why I think these are guys to watch because these are teams we will probably be talking about at some point during the season, and you're going to see
Absolutely.
these names come up. Midland is absolutely one of those teams, especially in a GPAC where teams like Concordia are taking a step down. Teams like Northwestern have question marks all over their
Yep.
rosters. This is an absolutely fantastic time for Midland to take that step back up, back into the top 25, back to being the 4, the 3, the 2 team in this GPAC conference. And it all starts with Denkert, because Denkert isn't just, an all conference running back, an all American running back. He also gets it done for you in the return game, which is a huge asset. Super, he's a stockier guy. He's built very solid, but he's super explosive. He's kind of Midland's do-it-all guy, and off of the back of him, they're going to be able to go places this year.
Yeah, 100%. You talk about that G-Pack, right? A guy like Tyson who makes things go inside of a conference that, like you said, has been dominated by just a few teams here and pretty much a lot of history. Feels like the window is potentially open for teams like Midland, but of course, you talk about you still have to get over the hill and get over the mountain. How do you measure that or quantify that for a team like Midland? Is it just against those top opponents? How do you build up into games like that?
Definitely, with the way the GPAC just is structured, you have to be able to pull off wins against those top teams. Guys like Tyson Demkert are going to be key in getting you there. A guy, like I said, who could do absolutely everything for you and is multiple time award winner. He's pretty much been the heart and soul of your offense for the past few years now, getting a
Yep.
little bit experience as a sophomore, but obviously those that junior season was really something special, and the year before that also.
And we've seen the weather played at some of these GPAC games, especially later on in the season. Obviously, you are all too well familiar with that. But if you don't have a good ground game, you're not finishing at the top of this conference, right? That's safe to say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
100%.
I mean, you are playing in snow at the end of the year. I remember
Yeah.
going down to Morningside on certain seasons in Sioux City, and it is -5 degrees and there's snow going. Like, it is just absolutely ridiculous. You're bonking
I
heads
don't
with
care if you're
guys like
Teddy
Tyson
two-gloving it or
Denker.
what. There's going to be minimal pass attempts made on playing conditions like that. But to keep things moving, man, let's go to Missouri Baptist and their guy out of the backfield, Lonel Banks, a guy that was 2024 all-heart running back, 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, averaged over 100 per game, added 13 catches for 100 yards through the air. Tiny but mighty, 5'7", but this guy is deceptively strong, slippery, agile, the type of dude that, again, when you pull up the tape, what I see right away, he makes up his mind, he puts his head down. To me, that's very important, especially a guy like him, to have a decisive runner in the backfield that pairs well with some of the gap scheme concepts we're seeing here from the Spartans. A lot of that maybe GT, you see the guard and tackle pulling, some different power inside gaps, A-gap type concepts. Offensively, the feature on a squad that has really been defensively led throughout recent history. It means he's going to be the focal point of just about every scouting report this fall. And to me, he's going to get to test himself this fall against some top caliber defenses and teams. Grandview, Benedictine, Mid-American Nazarene, Baker, among others on this schedule for Missouri Baptist. For a guy like this that is really at the top of his craft inside of the conference and the country, what better way to go out and prove it than to do it against top-level competition week in and week out? You see the breakaway speed right there and just chunk yardage from this guy. And something that I looked at, you talk about those top opponents. For him, all the ranked opponents last year held him to around 80 yards or less with at most one score. For me, that has to be a point of emphasis for this squad and, of course, for Lonel, that how does he show up in the big games this year? When your team needs the score to get back in the game, maybe take the lead late, how do you show up and make those big-time plays? He was limited to short yardage in a lot of those situations and didn't really get those big chunk plays that we see at the beginning of the highlight tape. I don't know. I'm not the X's and O's guy or the scheme guy to make it happen. That, to me, is the point of emphasis for Lonel Banks from Missouri Baptist, the offensive scheme in general. How do you get him involved? How do you get him explosive in the big-time contests where you need him most? That feels like the biggest stepping stone improvement from 2024.
For sure. And I think, too, there's something to be said for last year being kind of his first year in the fire, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Where he got most of his reps, getting a lot of that experience. I think being a smaller guy in this case for him helps, because you talk about his skills as a running back, how he's able to make a decision and go. He's so slippery, like you mentioned, that once he goes, he kind of just slithers his way through a defense. He's always getting through to the second level. He's always finding the tiniest of gaps and just hitting the hole and going. I think that's really crucial to his game. And I'm really excited to see, especially with this Missouri Baptist team, like you mentioned, the top dogs in the conference, you know, the Benedictines, the Mid-American Nazarenes, the
Yep.
Bakers. Again, another case of teams who have question marks.
Yeah.
Definitely a chance for Missouri Baptist off the back of Banks to get something done this year. I'm really excited to see him go at it. I think going into his senior year, it's gonna be good stuff from him.
Yeah, and he can bounce it outside, but again, like at 5'7", a dude that doesn't have the biggest stature in terms of the prototypical running back at the college level, he's not afraid to keep it between the tackles. I mean, a little cut back there, and you can bounce it outside the backer. He has the speed to do that in space, but he's not afraid to be an A-gap or B-gap type runner and go up against a Mike backer as opposed to a slot defender, a corner, or a safety coming down. By the way, he can make every single one of those guys miss, but that to me is the most impressive part about his game, is that even maybe where his size might limit other people, he is incredibly multifaceted.
Absolutely. I think too, that's a good transition. A guy like Banks talking about another undersized dude that's also slippery, but also is deceivingly strong. Somebody like
Yeah.
Keegan LaBelle from Marion, also going into his senior season. I mean, we have to remember the 4 touchdown game from the other season, right?
Yep.
Like just an absolute monster for Marion, a traditionally very good Marion team, but a guy at 5'7", 5'8", who's a two-time All-American, once as an honorable mention, once as a second teamer, I believe, and also a two-time All-Conference guy for the Mid-States. It is absolutely a good situation for him going into his senior year. This is another case of a main feature guy being on a defensive led team. Quarterback wise, you're still going to be looking for your guy there. But the chips are all in your favor. You know, you have the Cards as this Marion team, kind of the top dog in your prospective area, in your prospective conference. Keegan LaBelle is in a really good spot, especially with how many O linemen these guys return.
Yep.
Just producing all conference guys across the board on both sides of the ball. Like I said, there's going to be some gaps on offense to fill, but Marion's a reload team, not necessarily a rebuild. And I think Keegan LaBelle is going to be the feature guy for this team. He'll probably be the reason they make a run in the playoff because he is going to be so good down the stretch for them. Another dependable guy, another guy that's not afraid to hit for his size, a guy that will get you the yards that you need. I think it's going to be another great season for him.
Love that. And this has been an offense and a unit in general that has benefited from the other side of the ball. The defense has been one of the best in taking the ball away from opposing offenses. I had the chance to have Dwight Lewis, one of the former DBs, making the jump up to freaking Mississippi State on the show recently. Yeah. He was a guy that, I mean, we've been a part of following this team and that defense for a long time. Ball hawks all across the defensive backfield for this Marion squad. What does it look like now that some of them have moved on, transferred up, graduated, or otherwise? The offense is still going to be obviously potent when you have a guy like this in the offensive backfield, but you might get a few less opportunities. When you don't have, not to say they won't be able to replicate that in the defensive side of things, but when you don't have the same amount and same volume of opportunities to go and, get these chunk plays that we see in the video or other things like that, how do they take advantage of that and make the most of maybe every single drive this season? Just a challenge kind of for them moving forward. And then to close things off here, Indiana Wesleyan feels like they're a part of almost every conversation we have on this program, and for good reason. You just can't stay away from the Wildcats. And the guy we're talking about today from them would be Ryan Whitwell from, of course, Indiana Wesleyan, 2024 All MSFA first team of 2024, newcomer of the year, a guy that loves combat sports, Matt, and Barry Sanders. I'll take him on my roster tomorrow. He was once asked what he'd be doing if not for football. He said MMA. Yeah. And you know what? At 6 foot, 210 pounds, I believe him.
Yeah, he's a big dude. Absolutely believe monster.
I just love that I found that tidbit on him. And, for any opposing linebacker, defensive back, or otherwise, do your homework on this guy before you go meet him on the gridiron here. The UND transfer from GLVC, the Division II. He's, to me, a young guy that didn't get his chance early at UND. Was redshirted with the Greyhounds. Had a ton of great practice tape that I saw on Twitter when I was going through and trying to do some research. Felt like he believed he was ready to go now. Maybe didn't get that chance right away at UND. That's very common for a lot of Division II and even any level of college institution, man. You come in as a freshman, there's a very small chance you're going to be the guy right away. I think he believed, he knew that he could be that guy, and he had the production ready to go. Enters the portal. It certainly has worked out for him over at Indiana Wesleyan. The second back, and what really you kind of put it as a two-back attack. Roosevelt Gage, the other I guess, head of this attack, each with 1,000 yards a year ago. And he's going to have to step into a leadership role, especially all-conference quarterback Kyle Antoine is gone out of the picture. So the other part of that offensive backfield needs to step up, be a bigger part of that. Again, we go back to the biggest friend of any type of newer quarterback, quote-unquote, is a legit dog standing next to you at the running back spot.
Absolutely. And as a young guy, you mentioned that leadership role. It's going to happen for him. And it seems like he's ready for it, especially with his mentality coming out of UND, feeling like he needed that opportunity that Indiana Wesleyan provided him. I mean, you saw it as a freshman playing with a junior running back in Roosevelt Gage, who's no longer with the program. Absolutely a guy who's going to have to step into that role. But I think he's ready for it. I think especially being back two and you're still rushing for 1,000 yards, earning first team all conference honors, definitely somebody who can push that 1,500 plus mark, depending on how you build the offense around him. And I think
now we're talking like Barry here. Now we're talking like Barry.
Hey, look, if he's the Barry Sanders guy, I'll make the Barry Sanders comp. I have no problem with that.
And I don't know if he gets to claim Barry, man. He's 6 foot 210. I don't know if he gets to claim Barry at 6 foot, but that aside, I enjoyed doing my homework on him, and it's fun to hear a positive transfer portal story because I see all the ridiculous numbers and the horror stories of how many guys obviously get in and never find a home. For him to have that seemingly from the outside seamless transition and to get in there and make an impact right away is awesome. But close this thing out. Tell me about Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan Clay from Ottawa of Kansas. I think a guy you talk about the portal who might have had a bit of a different experience out of the gate. A guy who was a two-time LGLVC guy at William Jewell, two-time all-conference, I should say, guy at William Jewell, was there for 2 years, hit the portal, went to Emporia State, was only there for a season, and now finds himself in Ottawa, Kansas, a spot where this team didn't do so hot last year. They went 1-10, but don't let that deceive you. Metrics actually had this team as a top half in the country defense. And they had like double-digit all-conference guys, which for a one-win team is kind of absurd. Jordan Clay,
unheard
obviously.
of. I did not know that. That's ridiculous.
First team all-conference running back on a one-win team. I think overall, this team is one to watch because I feel like that record did not tell the story for them last season at all. And I feel like Jordan Clay, kind of in the same breath as a first-team all-conference guy, is still flying under the radar. He is absolutely fantastic. You look at his tape, he's a super efficient one-cut back. He finds his hole, reads the zone, and then goes. Being able to get north-south right away was huge for them. He had almost 700 yards rushing last year for the Braves. I think a guy that is really going to come out of nowhere for a lot of people. And I'm excited to be one of the people who said I was on the bandwagon ahead of time. I think they have a very
I like that.
Yeah, they have a very fun season ahead of them, especially in a very cluttered KCAC Bissell division that is really up for grabs. I'm curious to see how far Jordan Clay can take this team, and I think they'll do a lot better than people are assuming.
Yeah, there ain't much room to go the other direction, so you would hope that, things are trending north down there for the Braves. Some of the coolest uniforms in NAIA football, I will say as well. Helmets are sweet. They have like the arrow that comes down the front, I believe, if I'm remembering it correctly. So
also an NAIA women's flag football powerhouse. They're like 3 or 4 time national defending champions. Yep.
Hey, okay.
Mm-hmm. Football's kind of their thing, man. So I think the men's team will get it turned around here. They'll get back to winning ways.
I like the sound of that. Yeah. I like the sound of that, Matt. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate the insight. Football is incredibly close. Feels like teams are starting camp as early as like next week, man.
Dude, it's sneaking up on us, especially as an SID. It is sneaking up on me.
Yeah, man. And like I was saying before, like we need to. My number one goal and mission is. It sounds incredibly crazy, but to meet you in person and get you behind the desk this year would be my ultimate dream. Make a trip out there to one of the Dakotas and cover some ball, dude. But either way, pumped to have you along for the ride, and I think this is going to be a really fun season. But until then, we talk stats and previews and whatever else. Not much longer.
Yeah, I know.